KK Disco from Animal Crossing New Horizons. It comes off as a silly little goofy song, but it has a lot of interesting songwriting techniques. Let's look at the chords and then the production. The original is in F major. I put everything in the key of C major to show patterns across all songs. We start with our one chord in what sounds like a major 7 sus2. We go to the flat 7, B flat. The second chord is already not from the key of C major. This is one way of doing borrowed chords. You take the same chord shape and move it to a different root. More often, you'll see borrowed chords used to set up a chord that's already in your key. For example, C7 to F major 7. Then hit a nice G dominant chord, a G7 sus4. I'm a big fan of it. It's got a lot of happy momentum. That's the intro again. I'll play it on piano. Here's the A section. It's a very disco sound. It's a 4-3-2 walk down using 7th chords. You got your major 7 and then 2 minor 7s. We play it 3 times. The third time we take it up to the 4-3-2 in the key of E flat. That change might seem random, but the keys E flat major and C minor use the same notes, the same chords. So we're using borrowed chords here in the same way as the intro. Take a chord or set of chords and just repeat it in a new key. And then we sneak in our G9 sus4 at the end to bring us back to the key of C. We then go to the B section, what sounds like a verse. It starts on the 1, C major 7, then we go A dominant 7 flat 9 to take us to D minor 7. This is the other way of using borrowed chords, setting up a chord that's already in our key. We set up the D minor 7 chord through an A dominant 7, the 5 chord in D harmonic minor. This one uses a flat 9 and then resolves to a D minor 7. We do a different A chord for a second. This is a sus chord, so it doesn't quite sound like a dominant. Then the bread and butter 2-5-1 cadence. I have this one using a different sus chord on the 5 this time, G7 sus2. A common way to loop a 2-5-1 is adding something like a D flat diminished 7 at the end. That's the next chord, only now with an A root. So it's actually the A7 flat 9 from earlier. Next is the 4, the F major 7, and then we have a cadence to bring us back. Here you might expect the 2-5-1 cadence from a second ago. Instead, you're going to get something else. I've never heard this before. It replaces the 2 with a B flat 7 sus2, then our G chord we've been using, going to a G note vamp. So it's like a flat 7, 5-1 cadence. After that, we bring back the A section and then jump to the bridge or a C section. It's pretty typical. We start on the 1 again. We get a borrowed 2-5-1 for D, adding a sus2 on the 5. Then we start building to something new. We resolve to D minor 7, then go to E minor 7, the 2 and 3 in the C major. We transpose up to E flat major again, play the 2 and 3 there, F minor 7, G7. We come back to the original key and do the long 2-5 implied 1 cadence. Definitely a few interesting things in these chords, especially that flat 751 cadence and borrowing a few chords from E flat. Let's talk music production. The style deliberately goes for the programmed digital sound. It sounds like a MIDI guitar is being used, but they still make it sound good. Here are two techniques that I heard. The first is rhythm guitar strumming. Instead of playing all the notes in a chord at the same time, the notes are played like this. This is something a lot of music producers get wrong. They'll strum every chord in the same direction like this. This is not how it's done on guitar, especially if the chords are fast. It's a slight difference, but it should sound more like this. I doubled the intensity in this next one so you really hear it. When playing rhythm guitar, the strumming hand is always stuck in this down-up pattern, even if you're not playing a chord. On a 16th note grid, the hand moves down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. This means if the chord is placed on these beats, you can end up with 3 up strums in a row. It's not as simple as changing the strum direction for each chord. They have to fit into this pattern. Imagine your head is here at the bottom, your feet are at the top. This is what it's like playing guitar. The lowest sounding string is near your head, the highest is at your feet. This means a down strum from your perspective goes up in pitches. It's easy to remember if you just follow the M shape. If we play 4 chords back to back on the piano roll, the first rises, the second falls, third rises, fourth falls. They create an M. Even if we don't have this third chord in there, all of the chords should follow this M pattern. Here's how to do this in FL, Logic, and Ableton. Pause if you want to read it all. The second technique is muting. On rhythm guitar, this is when you play a chord but stop the strings from ringing out. It makes a really short, quiet, percussive, scratchy sound. To recreate this on MIDI guitar, I use short notes with the velocity all the way down. Low velocity notes show up as purple in Logic. As you can see, these can fill in the space in between chords. Altogether, it sounds like this. Let's talk rhythms really quick. In that section I just played, there were 3 different rhythm patterns in 4 bars. This song has a lot of rhythm patterns. I counted 15 different ones. This was the most common one. It's like a dotted eighth feel. The guitar sound is GT Clean Jazz Square from my pack Open World Volume 1. All of the presets in this video are from that pack, but more on that later. Let's talk melodies now. Here's the A section, but my remake. It's a simple call and response with the guitar rhythm. You could label it A, B, A, B. In bar 5, they combine on the key change up to E flat major or C minor. The melody emphasizes this by playing the E flat, and then we have a pickup into the B section. The B melody is interesting because there's very little repetition. Normally you see repeating patterns in melodies like an A, B, A, B, A, 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 B. Not here. The first real repeated line happens here, 8 bars in. Another thing I want to point out is long and short notes. Note length is one of those things that is easily overlooked but adds a lot. When you have long notes, changing it up a bit by adding in a short note. And it ends on long quarter notes, which I think is pretty cute. If you're wondering, this preset is Wow Meow. I took some things we learned from this original song and applied them to make a new song. I'll break it down the same way, chords and then production. In the intro, I liked how the original song used a flat 7, so I brought one in too. Mine goes to the flat 3 as well. It uses borrowed chords in the same way the original intro did, keeping the same chord shape and going to new roots. It's a sound that's familiar if you listen to old school house music. Here's the A section. I wanted to use similar classic disco chords, meaning lots of minor 7s, major 7s, and replacing dominant chords with 9sus4 chords. I went with a walking F, E, D, E, but I didn't want to repeat chords, so I went with a C2 over E here. I'm a big fan of the 9sus4 chord. I use it twice. It works great here because it's an E minor 7 over A. You're expecting the E minor 7 here, but it's changed up with a new root note. Here's the B section, what would be the verse. I'm using some elements you'll hear in Japanese songwriting. If you haven't watched What Makes a Song Sound Japanese, there's a ton of interesting music theory in that one. Some specifics, relying on the 2-5-1 somewhat often, using a minor cadence, a borrowed cadence, a big major borrowed chord near the end, and using a lot of sus chords on the 5. This one goes 1-3-4, cadence out, then we repeat ourselves, swapping a couple chords, swap the 6 for the 1, and use the major 3 this time. This is another thing that's really common in Japanese music. A cadence back to the 6, set up the 4, and then it's your 2-5-1 cadence with a borrowed chord in there. Last is my C section. This is a chromatic walk down, F sharp, F, E, E flat, D. It uses 3 borrowed chords for this, 2 diminished chords. Got our F sharp half diminished, also known as F sharp minor 7 flat 5, and E flat diminished. The third chord is the minor 4 with an extra note on top, the 6. That progression lands us back on a D minor 7, which is the 2 of our 2-5-1 cadence. The 2-5-1 is interrupted by a backdoor cadence. That one also doesn't resolve, and we end up on our 2-5 implied 1 cadence again. For my song, I chose similar instruments, arrangement order, and guitar techniques, the strumming and muting. What I did differently and what I'm going to focus on right now is the guitar rhythms and the melodies. For the guitar rhythms, I wanted to keep it simple. I only used 3 rhythms in the verse and bridge sections of the song. The original uses 7 different rhythms over the same time. So this is the non-strummed guitar. The guitar sound in this one is my preset GT Acoustic Guitar Crush. Let's talk melodies, specifically the B melody. I wanted to make a non-repeating melody too. It's a tricky thing to pull off, but I was up for the challenge. That said, mine's pretty different. It's less singable. It's more of like an instrument melody. There's 2 techniques I'm using here. The first is portamento, the sliding effect. This is done either through a pitch bend, which I'm automating in some points, or by enabling the portamento setting in your synth. Some of them have this. The other technique is ornamentation. This just means decorative notes. You can use them to start a note. You can use them to end a note. You can use them right before the end of a note. You can also use a mod wheel for like a vibrato shaking effect here. And you can add low velocity notes for added rhythm like this. I went over this in the Japanese music theory video where I do something similar. The preset I use for this melody is lead tuned crush sine. In the A section, I do something cool with the rhythm and melody here. I play the same rhythm 4 times in a row. The 5th time you kind of expect it, so I change it a bit. Here is the A section going into my C section. If you like the song, it's out under Virtual Goober. The sounds come from my Open World Volume 1 pack. It's a very big Serum preset pack with over 300 of these new retro style sounds. If you don't have Serum, there's also bounce out one-shots to use in any sampler. There's previews at varsitybeats.com. Links to the pack and the song are in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.